Michael, we're being told to get back on the agenda by our students.
Oh. Thanks,
He brought an
guys.
agenda and everything.
So I'm gonna start with the hot topic that's going around at the moment, which is Palworld, that thing that looks like Pokemon, and it's really weird. So most of the initial stuff that I heard about the game was it's just rip off Pokemon. I thought, right, I am going to try it just in case Nintendo does actually take it down at some point. I don't think they will now, but if Nintendo does take it down, I at least want to have tried it. And when I first opened the game, I was like, "Oh, that's cute." And sometimes some of the animals are like, "I don't really want to beat these things." I mean, the actual premise of the game and premise of Pokemon is a bit, really?
Well, that's kind of what they're doing with this. Is they're
Is it
taking this
satire?
concept,
Is it satire, right?
yeah, and they're like giving them guns and
Yeah.
making a factory simulator, and like it's actually quite nightmarish.
So one of the first things I did, and one of the first things I tend to do in a lot of games that have more of an open world aesthetic, is I try to explore. And I didn't know any of the game mechanics here, and I didn't think it looked like Pokemon at all. It didn't feel like Pokemon, because the first thing I did was jump into a rock and realize I could climb. And I was rewarded for that behavior within like a couple of minutes of starting the game, because I explored and found an egg, and then I found this green glowy thing that does something, I don't know. And I thought, this feels more like Breath of the Wild and Zelda games than it does anything else. And then when I opened up the tech tree, I was like, this feels like Ark. No, I genuinely don't understand. I missed out on the Pokemon craze. I was a Pog guy.
I was neither, because I was slightly too old for both of them.
But yeah, Pokemon, the fact that I sat down with my kids and they named every single character that came up, I think they might be skirting very close to, is this inspiration or is it IP? You know, you're impinging on
I mean, if
IP.
Nintendo do take them to court, which they can do, because you can take anyone to court,
Yeah.
It becomes a matter for the court having to decide. So who knows? I doubt it. I think they're playing very hard and fast. Like they're courting a very litigious company, so they might go to court.
Yeah, I know from the. Okay, so with IP infringement, if someone can confuse the thing that you've made with someone else's IP, then you have that's like one of the key things. Do people think that this is actually a Pokemon game? And the answer is going to be yes, because everybody immediately goes, it's a Pokemon game with guns. So there is probably cause there for them to go for IP infringement.
But
who knows?
It's an interesting looking game. My girlfriend just took one look at it and went, "You will hate this." And I looked at the trailer and went, "Yup."
It's interesting. I thought I wouldn't like it, but I gave it a go, which is odd for me. I don't play games when they first come out because of bugs and stuff. As I say, it felt like Zelda. I was enjoying it. I was enjoying the building mechanic, and I think it was releasing the mechanics at a really good pace. It wasn't front-loading stuff and explaining the entire game to you within the first 5 minutes. It was doing things in a really nice and paced way. But there's one thing, so you kind of build your base. You put down a little node, and it puts an area around it which you can build. But one of the things within the game is that they have your resources. So if you chop down a tree, at some point, it just reappears. And the same with a rock. So what would happen is my pals would explore part of the area, because I hadn't built my base in a completely flat zone. They would go into this one area, the rock would reappear, and I'd come back to my base and all my pals were just stuck behind a rock. I'm like, So it's a bit dodgy with the AI, and there are some real quirks with it, but as a game, I thought it was pretty nice. Some people have I've seen referred it to a bit like Elden Ring as well, Elden Ring-esque, with some of its presentation with the big tree and all the other things. But I've not played Elden Ring, so that analogy went or simile.
I'm not drawn to the game just because I don't find things that inspired it don't speak to me. I do think it's interesting. I think maybe they went a little closer to the source material than they needed to. The fact that they did it, and they openly talk about the fact that they're inspired by games they love. The fact that everyone looks at it and immediately goes Pokemon is like, it's a thing. But I don't know, it's an interesting game.